this album changed the game. Prior to the release of this album, reggae was mocked by many people, especially the rock aficionados. It wasn't considered to be music of any real worth. This album changed everything because those same rock musicians and music press people wrote about this album in an incredibly positive way. Prior to that, there had been a period in time where the skinhead movement had taken reggae because it was great to dance to and it was very, very popular. And let's just clarify here, not all skinheads were fascists. Not all skinheads wanted to beat up people of a different color. It was just a small element. But unfortunately, it did tarnish the reputation of the music because people said, oh, the skinheads like that music. So there was a, what? You know, whereas long-haired hippies with beards, you know, how could you like that kind of music when they like it? So there was a stigma attached to it because people who had previously said reggae music, yeah, okay, I kind of get it, but, you know, oh, the Wailers. Oh, I've read reviews of this. And it wasn't just the raw rhythms. There was a lot more going on within it. And of course, the songs themselves were very poignant. And this music resonated with me and had done since I was 14, 15. Clearly, there was an anticipation of this album because they'd been signed to Island Records. The first album that had turned me on to the group was an album called Soul Rebel. And I knew of the Wailers because they'd made ska records from '64 onwards, and they were a hot band. But this album was different because this album contained overdubs. So the reggae rhythms had been built and constructed at Harry J Studio in Jamaica, and then overdubs were done elsewhere. I mean, some reggae people found it too much. The purists were like, no, this isn't acceptable. No, this is all these overdubs, you know, that Chris Blackwell's produced, so that's not acceptable. For me, it was acceptable because it added a musicality to the album on top of what was already there, and it meant that I could rave on now to all the people I've been talking about this music even more because there was an album they could go to get it. Because when you're really passionate about something, you can't help wanting to turn people on. You want people to know that this is really interesting and you don't know about this? You don't know about this music? It was an introduction for millions of people to the music of Jamaica, which was once known as ska, then became known as rocksteady, and then reggae. And it has changed in its mood and tone several times since then, but it is forever known and will be forever known as reggae. And this album brought a lot of people to it. Why? It was on a major international label. It was distributed all over the world. It was incredibly well produced. They had a unique sound. And once I got it back to my rooms, I played it all the time because, first of all, it looked super cool. I mean, this was a work of art. It was a Zippo lighter and it was called Catch a Fire. So, you know, it was also this photograph of the Wailers on the back. And this is the first time I'd seen them photographed as a group. And then when you take it out, when you take the vinyl out, this magnificent island logo, I thought it was an amazing piece of artwork. Obviously, it represents Jamaica, the colors, that soft pink, the yellow and the blue, the clouds, the palm tree. I thought it was a magnificent piece of work. And obviously, I'd seen the label before, but I just thought that was super special. Until this album was released, I believe the only albums that came out of Jamaica were albums that were a collection of singles or hits or compilation albums. I think I'm correct in saying there hadn't been an album like this from the world of Jamaican music before this. So if I had to cherry pick, I'd immediately choose the first two tracks on the opening side. Slave driver, catch a fire, the table has turned. It was the journey from Mother Africa into slavery 400 years ago. And that's, incidentally, that's the next track. 400 years, 400 years.
400 years, 400 years, 400 years.
Midnight Ravers was that guitar rick in it just, we become the Midnight Ravers. It was dark and mysterious, last track on the album. And also for sheer kind of, kind of sweetness and cuteness, and yeah, I got that. Baby, baby, we got a date.
Baby, baby, we've got a date. Oh, baby, baby, don't you be late. Oh, baby.
And then that wire guitar, that blue guitar comes in. Somebody once said, everyone's got a reggae album in their collection. And I believe they have. Do a lineup, and I bet you couldn't pick out the reggae head, because they're all reggae heads. It's that thing, what does a reggae guy look like? Does he wear red, gold and green tam? Has he got dreadlocks if he's white or whatever? No, because reggae's not 40, 30, it's over 50 years this has been going. So you imagine you got people who discovered it when I discovered it and before I discovered it. So they've taken it with them and they're still passionate about it. I think it's safe to say that without this album, Bob Marley would still eventually have made his mark upon the world because he was such a phenomenal talent. But in the same breath, I have to say that this album and the Burning album was responsible for bringing literally millions of people to his work in years and years after the album was made. When I was interviewing Bob Marley, I was so nervous. I was speaking to him like this. I actually couldn't queue up the records the night I interviewed him on Capital Radio. It was live. I literally couldn't queue up the records. I was a nervous wreck. He was very cool, very laid back, and it was an hour. And we played lots of their hits, ska stuff, the stuff with Lee Perry. And yes, we did speak of this album and the Burning album and so on. I don't think it's right that it should say Bob Marley and the Wailers. It should remain as it was recorded. They were a group at the time. Bunny Wailer, Peter Tosh, and Bob Marley were the Wailers. And the album was made by all of them, so it should still be called Catch a Fire by the Wailers. Because I felt so strongly about the music, it enabled me to say, see, I told you, it is amazing music. It doesn't just go chunka, chunka, chunk. It is amazing music. Melodies, messages, love songs, songs of social protest, songs in defense and support of people, and reaching out for people, peace and love, Rastafarianism, the concept of love and total love. Love and hate can never be friends, as Dennis Brown said. When I asked Bunny Wailer the last time I interviewed him, what would your message be to the world? He looked straight in the camera and said, love, love. And one of the Wailers' biggest hits was One Love. Let's get together and feel one love, one heart. Let's get together and feel all right. It changed my life because I so wanted this album to happen. I was a die-hard fan of this music before this album came out. I discovered it in 1964. By 67, I was avidly collecting the music, but a lot of people didn't get it. They were like, oh, David Rodigan, yeah, he's nuts about Jamaican music. The artwork, the music, the way it was recorded, the whole thing, it was just like, it was irresistible. It changed my life because I couldn't believe how good it was.